when you hear everything in your life is your fault and you're externalizing your power, you're being a victim, they don't like to hear that. But then when you realize, hey, I can take all of my power back. It might not be comfortable, but once you're in control of your thoughts, actions, feelings, that's actually the most empowering thing, right? Because you're in control, not everybody else. The more that you try to control what other people say or do, it's exhausting because it's never going to happen, right? We can absolutely influence what other people say and do based on our own actions, but you can never directly control somebody else. And so the longer that you're a victim to what the external world is throwing at you, the more stressful life you're going to live.
Captain Taylor Morgan, welcome to the Superhuman Life.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, brother. How's Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg been treating you since you've been here?
It's been great. I was born of the sea, so I love being around the beach. Have you been to Sunset Beach?
I have not, no.
Yeah, that's been my favorite so far. I've only been to 2 here, I guess, so
Okay.
small sample size, but I love it. I went yesterday and it was raining a little bit and it was Easter, so there was nobody on the beach. I just had the whole thing to myself.
Yeah. Born of the sea. Tell me more what that means.
Yeah, I mean, not literally. I wasn't like born on the ocean, but just from basically my whole life. Once I went to the beach, I was like, oh, this is home. I just feel like that is my place to be. So that's why I love SoCal, and here actually feels quite similar to SoCal.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, we have a deep, rich history in pirates. We have the Tony Gaspar invasion. Every year we have the annual Gasparilla festival, which brings in a music festival. There's a massive parade. Hundreds of thousands of people come into the area. And I think it just obviously runs right in line with the captain's lifestyle, which is where I'd like to start today. Because I think I read that you identify yourself as a modern day pirate. So number one, what does that mean? What's a modern day pirate? And tell us the whole genesis story behind the captain's lifestyle.
Yeah, modern day pirate. One of my main values, although it's not directly a core value of mine, is freedom. Pirates were free. And there's a big misconception around pirates that they were all just, raping and pillaging and killing, which is absolutely the case for some of them. But the majority of pirates wanted to steer clear from conflict because they would have to pay their crew for any injuries, and they didn't want to do that. So a lot of them were former Navy or merchant ships that weren't happy with the way that they were being treated or the way that they were being paid. So they were really entrepreneurs. They went into business on their own, and they were some of the first people to incorporate like equal pay, equality on board. Like it didn't matter if you were black, white, woman, gay, straight, didn't matter. Part of the ship, part of the crew. So I very much resonate with that. If you're going to put in the work, welcome aboard, right?
Yeah.
So how the captain's lifestyle got started, my last name is Morgan. So growing up, nickname Captain Morgan, And after I got out of the Marine Corps, I became a CrossFit coach. And in 2018, while I was coaching CrossFit, I heard on a podcast, I don't remember which one, but they said, if you are thinking about starting a podcast, just start. Like, just get it going now. And I was like, okay. So I got a microphone and started recording podcasts. And I titled my brand The Captain's Lifestyle because as a CrossFit coach, I noticed that a lot of guys were coming into the gym and they would ask me like, hey, I've been coming in for about a year now. Why am I not seeing the results anymore? They had plateaued. And I would ask them, well, how's your sleep? How's your nutrition? How's your stress levels? Their answers would always be the same. Like, I'm lucky if I get 6, maybe 7 hours. My diet is pretty good. Anybody who says that, diet's not great, right? And they were stressed out from relationships, work, whatever. So I would tell them, it's like, well, you can't come into the gym for an hour and expect that to offset the other 23 hours of a bad lifestyle, right? Like it's all of these incorporated into one thing. So instead of just teaching people how to do pull-ups faster, I started telling them about sleep and all these things. So that's why I called my brand The Captain's Lifestyle, and was working at as head coach of a CrossFit gym in Saudi Arabia, and ended up not liking it there. We can get into that story. And this was in 2019, and that's when I decided to go full on into creating a holistic lifestyle coaching program for men to lead their most healthy, productive, fulfilling lives.
Yeah, that's great, man. And there's obviously I want to get into, your 12 tenets or articles. I think you call them the Captain's Code and everything that you've created, and really kind of diving into how you help these men optimize. But I want to go back to something that you said at the beginning there, Taylor, is you said freedom is one of the values, I think is the word that you used around which you try to live your life. And it's a big component of what I talk about as well, right? I think in the addiction space, we talk a lot about finding freedom from our sin, our vices, whatever's really holding us back. But I also look at freedom as kind of a secondary meaning. I talk about faith, fitness, finance, family, and freedom, kind of the big 5 Fs. And I think for us, you hear faith, fitness, finance, family talked a lot, right? There's a lot of guys that have that as a part of their core values or part of their program. The freedom component, obviously, is the free from addiction. But really, it's the optimization of what you're doing with your life outside of your work and kind of your everyday responsibilities. I know you talk a lot about the need for fun as a part of your life. So what does freedom mean to you? And when did it really become a major part of how you try to structure and live your life?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the primary area that I focus on is physical freedom, like being able to do what you want to do physically. Like if your buddies want to go on a ski trip, like you should be able to, if you've never skied before, relatively quickly be able to pick it up, because men should be athletes, essentially. We should be able to understand how to control and move our bodies. And that's not the case for most men. As we mentioned on your episode on my podcast, 60% of us are overweight or obese. That is not physical freedom. You are limited by your physical capabilities. So that's one of the main things that a lot of guys, they don't know what it's like to be able to do fun and cool things with their body, right? Like life is just more fun when you're able to use your body in the way that you want to, right? Like if you can just, pop out a handstand and, cool little party trick, right? Not that you have to get to that place, but for me, I enjoy that level of physical freedom. And then also freedom from being controlled, especially with what's been happening these past few years with the media, the government trying to coerce us into, their ideals, right? Which, whatever they have planned. Anybody who tries to impede on my freedom through force or fear, like that's a big red flag for me, right? So the whole mask thing, I actually got arrested for not wearing a mask in the airport. Yeah, because
no kidding.
I wasn't like, freedom for me is like, that's the most important thing. Like I don't care what happens. Like I am going to be in control of what I do, right? And then what was the second part of your question? When did it become important to me?
Yeah, when did it become like a major kind of value that you're living and designing your life by?
Yeah, definitely in the Marine Corps, because when I was in the Marine Corps, I was not free. We were absolutely controlled in a sense. And back then I was very much a victim, which we can get into what the victim mentality is and how that's really one of the root causes of a lot of problems that we're facing today. But so I was a victim. I would allow external circumstances to control how I felt. So in that sense, I just wasn't aware yet. But in the military, you're told where to be at what time, and you can't just opt out of the military once you're in. Of course, it was my choice to join, but one of the things that I didn't like about the Marine Corps was the lack of real leadership. It was more of a dictatorship, more do as I say just because I say so, because I have this higher rank than you. And a lot of times there wasn't any real reason behind it. A lot of guys in leadership positions, from my experience, seemed like they just wanted to flex their power. Ironically, it was a lot of shorter guys, it seemed to be. So, if you just extrapolate, maybe they got picked on in high school and, now they're in this leadership position. They're like, I have the power.
Napoleon syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. So they want to flex that power, which is understandable. And it's, it's not real leadership, right? So I didn't feel that sense of brotherhood and connection like I thought I would when joining. So I was researching ways to not necessarily get out of the Marine Corps, although that was definitely part of my searches, but to transfer over into a new unit. So I tried out for the Scout Sniper platoon. I tried out for recon, all in an attempt to move from this lack of brotherhood into more of an actual teamwork and camaraderie role. So that's when I realized I was like, okay, I hate being controlled. Like, I want to be in control of my time, of what I do. I also noticed that in Saudi Arabia. So even though I was the head coach, I was still an employee. And I realized very quickly that I am not an employee and I want to be in charge of everything about my life. I want to control everything that in my life, not externally, right? Because that is exhausting if you try to control the external world.
Where does that come from for you? I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade now. I knew from a very young age, I probably knew in elementary school that like the employee track, the employee route wasn't gonna be my long-term destination, right? I was the candy, selling candy on the back of the bus, the lemonade stands, the sports cars. I know you've interviewed Gary a couple times. Like I have that story, the pushing lawnmower around the neighborhood at 12, 13, 14 years old, like having a little landscaping business. And then I got into sales and kind of direct sales and door to door. Then I got into the gym culture and selling memberships and then personal training. And then 30, it's entrepreneurship, and the rest has kind of been history. For you, when did was there something about your past, or was it just this lack of leadership that you felt in the military that's like, okay, I can control some of these things better than these guys that are telling me what to do? So I guess the question is, when did kind of that desire to get into entrepreneurship and kind of be the one leading from the front?
It was definitely when I was coaching in Saudi Arabia. One, I realized that I wasn't making the impact in these guys' lives that I knew that I could, again, because they were just coming in for fitness advice, which is fantastic, but it's only one piece of the puzzle, right? And I would tell them about sleep and nutrition, and there's only so much you could do in a 1 hour slot when most of your time is focused on coaching different movements. So I knew that I wasn't making the impact that I wanted to. And so that got me thinking, like, well, how can I? And I also wanted to be in control of my time. That was one of the main things. Like if I didn't want to coach a class, like I wanted to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. I wanted to set my own schedule, right? So those were the two main components: time freedom and also location freedom. Like I wanted to be able to work from wherever I wanted. That's a big part, which that's one of the main things that I love what I do now is I can work from anywhere. And then also create a bigger impact. And that's why I created the Captain's Lifestyle program, to fill in the gaps where I was lacking as a CrossFit coach.
Yeah, you brought up the victim mentality a little bit not too long ago, and I think you even had maybe kind of described how there was a point in the military where maybe you were struggling with some victim mindset, victim mentality. I know you have a great definition around it, so I want you to define victim mentality for the audience and tell us where, because it's become a damn epidemic at this point. I think victim mentality holds more people back from stepping into greatness, stepping into a transformation. It almost feels like social media in one essence has created an environment where it's like accepted and almost sometimes celebrated to be a victim mentality. So define it for us. And then where do you feel this rise in victim mentality, specifically in men, is coming from?
Yeah, the victim mentality is an acquired personality trait in which a person tends to regard themselves as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. So if we break that down a little bit, the victim mentality is an acquired personality trait, right? If we acquire something, that means we can unacquire it, right? So how do we unacquire it? The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attribution. So it's a habit based on our thought patterns and how we act. So if we want to get out of the victim mentality, it starts with our words, because our words formulate our thoughts, and our thoughts dictate how we feel. Yes, like if you have a certain thought, that's going to create a feeling in your body. Or if somebody else says words at you, and that formulates a thought in your head based on your perception of what they're telling you, that makes you feel a certain way, right? And then how you feel determines how you act, right? So if you want to change how you act, you have to change how you feel. If you want to change how you feel, you have to change how you think, the words. And once you're able to change how you act, that then creates a new personality. And a new personality then forms a new personal reality for you. So if you want to create a new reality for yourself, it starts with the words. Because again, words formulate the thoughts. Thoughts determine how we feel. How we feel dictates how we act, and how we act creates our personality and personal reality, right? So how this shows up in everybody, really, not just men, but it's giving excuses. It's giving your power away. It's externalizing it. He makes me stressed. This is giving me anxiety, right? It's externalizing your power, giving it all away. That's why you feel powerless. You feel you're the victim of circumstance, right? So I actually had a coaching call with a client yesterday where I told him this. He was feeling the victim of the negative actions of others. Other people were saying things that he didn't like. They were doing things that he didn't like, and he was letting that determine how he felt. And I told him the definition of the victim mentality, and he was like, oh, it's usually like this light bulb moment for people that they realize, holy shit, I can take my power back. So a lot of people think that it's, when you hear everything in your life is your fault and you're externalizing your power, you're being a victim, they don't like to hear that. But then when you realize, hey, I can take all of my power back, it might not be comfortable, but once you're in control of your thoughts, actions, feelings, that's actually the most empowering thing, right? Because you're in control, not everybody else. The more that you try to control what other people say or do, it's exhausting because it's never going to happen, right? We can absolutely influence what other people say and do based on our own actions, but you can never directly control somebody else. And so the longer that you're a victim to what the external world is throwing at you, the more stressful life you're going to live.
Yeah, so let's see if we can get tactical here, right? Because I know that's obviously what you do with the coaching, and it's what we really like to bring to the show here. Let's go high level. Let's talk about some of these concepts, and then when it makes sense, let's bring it down here to, okay, somebody's recognizing that they're living in a victim mentality, right? They're projecting all the blame onto others. I'm not moving forward in my career because Susie next to me is getting all the favors, or I can't make progress in the gym because I have 3 kids and a wife and 2 jobs, and I don't have the time, playing victim to all their other responsibilities. Or I can't break free from porn because the constant thoughts, triggers, and urges are too much for me to bear. They're a victim to their own thoughts, is how I would kind of perceive that. So once they've recognized that they're living in this victim mentality, how do they begin to change? I think you said it's the thoughts first that we have to change. So what's the process for somebody changing their thoughts?
Control the controllables. So we are always in control of our thoughts and actions. It may not feel like it, but realistically we are. Because if you ask the question, well, who else is in control of your thoughts and feelings and actions? Nobody, right? Unless you obviously give them that power, but they're not directly controlling you. You choose how you respond to that. So if we want to get out of the victim mentality, it starts with the words. So I don't have time. It's a very common excuse that people give. Well, is that accurate or inaccurate? Do you have time? Well, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, right? So I don't have time doesn't exist as an excuse. It's invalid, right? We have time for our priorities. We always make time for our priorities. Like if I like to give the example. If you have kids and you get a phone call and you're in an important business meeting that your kid is being rushed to the hospital, like it doesn't matter what's happening in that business meeting, you're going to make the time to go to the hospital to see your kid, right? Now, if that was the gym and you're in that business meeting and you had a set time with your trainer, you're like, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym because I'm not prioritizing that. So one, we look at the priorities. Where are you spending your time? First, it's important to define your priorities. A lot of people don't actually have those defined. So a lot of times it's work. They get caught up in work, more and more work. And then, of course, they say they don't have time to go to the gym. So it starts with the language, like I said. So realizing that you do have time, you're just not prioritizing it. And then let's take a specific example. Let's go with porn. What's one of the most common excuses that you hear from guys who say that they don't want to quit porn or they can't, whatever?
Loneliness, isolation, or I would say I just can't handle the triggers. Like the urges are too much for me to bear.
I can't handle the urges. Well, then you would ask them, is that accurate or inaccurate? Can you actually not handle it? Like what would happen if you did refrain from watching porn?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know the answer to that, right? It's like,
what would be a response to that?
a response in real time. God, that's a great question, man, because I don't know if I've ever actually followed it up with that specific question. But I know that you would eventually lead them to saying, yeah, I would be just fine. And I actually would probably learn a lot about my current self. I think that's ultimately what it's going to be. It's going to be an exploration within your own self-awareness.
Yeah, ultimately, this doesn't just go for porn. This goes for any addiction, any short-term comfort, right? We're taking the instant gratification over the long-term reward, right? So we're taking the pleasure and the satisfaction now because we want to avoid the feeling of discomfort, right? We want to avoid that challenge. So we're just caught in that feedback loop over and over again.
Yeah, if we have, I mean, we have to probably zoom out a little bit more to realize that a lot of these men have created a reality for themselves that they're not comfortable in. So the urge becomes the trigger that, hey, this situation that you're in is not ultimately where you want to be. So the escapism comes in now, right? Because they're not happy in the current reality that they've created. So they seek that instant gratification, or they seek it to get out of the situation that they put themselves in. I'll circle back to the thoughts though, right? Because I think you said a couple things that I would love some clarification on, because I don't believe, and push me back here, I don't believe we're in control of our thoughts, all of them. Some of them we can direct, right? That's the process of thinking, asking, and answering a series of questions with yourself. That's what thinking is. So you can control them to a certain extent, but there's a lot of thoughts that we have randomly throughout the day. You know, when you're by yourself, when you're on a walk, when you're in the gym, driving down the car, as we're sitting here back and forth, I'm not controlling everything that's coming to my head while you're talking. So are we in control of the thoughts, or are we in control to how we respond or react to them?
Yes. Great question. You're right. We don't always control the thoughts that pop into our head. We are in control of whether or not we believe them or take action on them, right? So that's the O in the captain's code, is observe your thoughts and language.
Okay.
Right? Like just because you have the thought doesn't mean that it's truth, right? So if you observe it from a third person's perspective and ask, is this a useful thought for me to have? And if it's not, then you don't have to believe it. You don't have to let these thoughts like, you're not good enough, or I can't do this. Like those aren't serving you in any way.
Yeah.
So why choose to focus on them?
Yeah.
Right.
So how does somebody then begin to get into that third party perspective, or begin to not believe all the thoughts that they've always believed in the past? They've always believed that they're not good enough. Maybe they've been told this for, 15 years of their life. They've always believed that I'm not going to be able to overcome this addiction. They've always believed that I'm big boned, right? So I'm never going to be fit or healthy. They're always going to believe that, hey, we just don't come from that white collar family. So we're always going to struggle. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on, right? So these belief systems, how does somebody begin to elevate themselves outside of believing every thought is true?
Start building a case for yourself, because a lot of people are actively building a case against themselves, why they're not good enough, why they can't do this, all these excuses that a lot of them are valid excuses, right? Like these external factors can make your life more difficult, but that doesn't mean that you should fall victim to them and let them actually control your life. Okay, if you are from a poor family, like one could say that you are starting from a step down because you have less resources. Okay, you can't change that situation. Yeah. What you can do is take action from where you are, right? So start building a case for yourself. The reticular activating system is a part of the brain that's responsible for where we place our focus, right, and attention. The more that we repeat phrases like I can't or I'm so stressed out or whatever it is, the more that the brain is going to seek out reasons for you to be stressed out or find reasons that you're actually not good enough, right? Because that's what we're focusing on, right? So if we change that, if we start to focus on the good things, then that's what we're going to start to find more of. So we'll play a test right now. Like look around the room and count as many blue objects as you can find. We'll just take a few seconds for this. What'd you get?
I guess we didn't really define objects, so I was just looking for blue things.
Anything blue?
I got 7.
Cool.
Yeah.
How many green things did you count?
I didn't look for green.
Oh, you don't say. Right? So if we're always looking for the negative aspects, if we're always looking for the things that are causing us stress, we're not even paying attention to the positive aspects of life. We're not even thinking about the things that are going well in our lives. And especially as guys, we're so self-critical, right? I know I am still currently, and even more so in the past. We always beat ourselves up, right? So if that's what we're focusing on, we're going to keep finding more of those things. It's not that we're not doing things right? We're just not focusing on those things. So for me, one of my struggles was acknowledging myself for the things that I had already done, because I would always brush them off as that's just what I'm supposed to do. Like, of course I'm doing those things. That's just what I do. And it was a really powerful experience for me to actually acknowledge some of my wins and to recognize how far I had come and some of the things that I had done. A lot of guys don't do that. We only focus on what we're not yet doing, on the things that we still need to do or include, right? A lot of people come to me for new habits or things that they should incorporate into their lives. And a lot of times we don't need to pile more things onto what we're already doing, right? A lot of times we just need to subtract some things. So it all comes back to what we focus on, right? What we focus on, we tend to find more of.
No, absolutely, man. I love that you brought in the reticular activating system. The audience would be very, very familiar with that. Something I've talked about a lot, and I think we talked about it on your show. Step 6 is living in a state of gratitude on my 7-step guide. I say all the time, when you begin to look for things every day to be grateful for, the things to be grateful for appear more regularly every day in your life. And it's like hacking that reticular activating system. Like if I can spend a couple minutes every morning thinking about, and not just thinking, but like truly embracing what it means to be grateful. Then as I'm navigating the rest of my day, it's like the small interaction with the cashier at the grocery store, as I walked by the gym and like I just had a small little conversation. It's like those little things, like they begin to become more regularly abundant in your life, everyday life, because that's what you're telling your brain is important to you, because it's going to reveal more of that to you.
So this goes to one of the A's in the captain's code is affirmations, repeating affirmations to yourself. And this is one of the things that I told the client yesterday who was in the victim mentality. We switched some of his words around and came to more accurate statements. And what he was struggling with is he was allowing other people to be in control of his self-worth, right? Like if this person doesn't respond to me, that means I'm not good enough, right? And so we got him to believe that he is always in control of his self-worth. So that became one of his affirmations. I am always in control of how I feel about myself, right? So going back to the reticular activating system, it's a process because he had been saying to himself, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, right? So if you repeat that to yourself every single day for decades upon end, of course you're going to believe that, of course. So by tweaking that and by saying this to yourself every day, I am always in control of how I feel about myself. That then starts to shift again what you focus on, and it's not an instant switch, right? It's a process over time. So repeating these types of affirmations to yourself daily. So at first it might not feel genuine because you're coming from a place of not believing that. So at first it may feel like you're tricking yourself, which sure, trick yourself into believing that, because the more you say it, the more you're going to believe it. And if you believe it and feel it, you're going to act in accordance with, right?
Now, can people run into a danger here, though, with thinking that affirmations is all that it takes? I could stand in the mirror every morning and say, I'm fit, I have six-pack abs, I'm jacked, I'm shredded, and then I spend the rest of the day sitting on the couch eating junk food. I'm not going to become ripped, shredded, six-pack abs. So is there a dangerous place that people can fall into with affirmations? How do they stay out of that? And what's the next step after affirming?
Yeah, you can't just say these things and then they happen, right? So you actually have to feel it. You have to act as if it were true. So how we do affirmations is we pull it directly from what they're saying, so they're hyper effective for that person. It's like it's individual. You don't just go Google search like affirmations. That's not going to work. We make it specific about their specific situation, and we get them to identify parts of their life where they did take action or they were worthy, and so we get them to find truth in the statements, and so they can actually start to believe it and correlate when they're saying it to that specific event where it actually happened in their life. So then they feel it more. And again, how you feel determines how you act. So if you feel that way, you're going to act differently. Yeah,
that's powerful. You mentioned it here a couple times. I know you talked about the observation. You said one of the other ones here, affirmations. Walk us through this captain's code if you can, start to finish. Take as much time as we need here. We'll spend a good bit of the rest of the time we have here on this. I know it's a big chunk of what you do. So what is the captain's code? Define it for us, and then we'll kind of chew on that for a little bit.
Yeah, the captain's code are the 12 fundamental articles by which I lead my life for optimal health, happiness, fulfillment. Right. So it's the basics. So starting off with the C, cold exposure. Start your morning with a cold shower, something that most people are deathly afraid of, right? We don't want to wake up from our warm, cozy bed and get in a screaming cold shower. And that's exactly why you should, especially if you used to be like me and the first thing you did was check your phone. And there's been a lot of times where I would wake up first thing in the morning and I'd look at my phone and, let's watch porn and start jerking off first thing in the morning, right? So break that habit. As soon as you wake up, get in the cold shower. That will shock your system. It will wake you up a lot better than coffee. And there's a whole bunch of physiological benefits to it. But what I like to focus on is the mental aspect. Because if you can deliberately put yourself into that challenging and uncomfortable situation, and especially understand how to downregulate your nervous system in the stressful situation through breathing, then that translates to every other area of your life. You're stuck in traffic. You can breathe. You're in an uncomfortable argument with your significant other. You can breathe. You can calm yourself down, right? In a combat situation, right? Like you're in a fight. It does no good if you're all stressed out. You're going to burn yourself out real quick. You got to learn how to breathe, relax, stay under control.
Triggered for pornography and you feeling that the urges and temptations are too much for you to manage. Downregulate your central nervous system.
Yes. So I like the cold. It's a fantastic teacher. So that's the first C.
How does because I know you spent some time in Minnesota, also out in Cali. How does the Florida water compare to what you get up there? Oh, man. Is it cold enough down here? Because I get a lot of guys that are like, you don't even know what cold water is, taking these cold showers in Florida.
No,
I do have a cold plunge at home, but I'm a shower guy as well.
Yes, the showers here have been lukewarm at best. The ocean feels amazing. I went to the beach with some people, and they said that the water was too cold, and that just like short-circuited my brain. I was like, what are you talking about? How can it be cold? Like it was like, I don't know, 70, 80 degrees, and who knows what the water temperature was, like no lower than mid high 60s at the lowest. Like
That's money, bro.
it just blows my mind. So yeah, you can start to build up your cold tolerance through taking cold showers and also building muscle mass. The more muscle we have, the more metabolically active we are, and the more we can regulate our core body temperature. So that's the C. The A is affirmations, which we covered. The P is play with life. So a lot of times as guys, especially, we get so caught up in our careers and we think we have to be so serious all the time. And that causes a lot of stress. And it's great to be able to be free, to let loose a little bit and get out of your head and into the body. Play is not in our head. Play is free flowing. Right? So I first learned this through Brooks at my men's event. He came out and hosted a retreat called Play. Actually, I first heard about it through the Strong Coach Summit in Austin, Texas, and hosted the same workshop there. And that's when I knew I had to have him for my men's retreat, because it was so powerful for me. He talked about the importance of play, and then he was like, all right, I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes to go play. And it was like 3, 2, 1, go. And like no other instructions. And I was like, shit. And some people got it instantly. Like they started, playing basketball or, dancing, whatever. And I was like the last one left. And I was like looking around like, what do I do? Because I'm very much an introvert. Like it's difficult for me to just go play and be free. At the time it was. And so I started to think, okay, well, what were some things that I enjoyed as a kid? I very much liked exploring and being in nature. So I looked around and there were some trees that looked like they were climbable. And so I started climbing trees. And that was so much fun. I was like, wow, it's been so long since I've climbed a tree and just, felt free and connected back to ultimately our primal nature.
I was going to say, you probably felt like you were back to your primal way of living. I don't think people understand how fundamentally important play is for us, for all mammals. There's a neural circuit in our brain that specifically is activated when we are in the act of recreational play. It's in every mammal. I think it was Jacques Paintsett actually found it. They're studying rats. And then I did so here in Clearwater, we have, they have one of these boat expeditions you go on, and it's like it's a dolphin kind of thing where they like the dolphins know exactly when this boat goes out, like they're going to start following it. The dolphins play in the wake of the boat. And I remember the person that was leading the expedition for us, like specifically said, when you see these young dolphins, they're literally treating this as recreational play. Animals are out there having fun. And I think as you're saying here, as we grow and as we become adults and as we become men, we lose that part. It becomes about the grind. It becomes about the work. It becomes about money, family. Don't forget about the play, guys. It is so fundamentally necessary. And as for the guys listening to this that are in our program and are struggling with something, the process of neuroplasticity requires play. Like turn that part of your brain on, and that's where some of that neurological change is going to come. So awesome. I love that. That's a big part of what you talk about. Yeah. Because I don't think enough guys do. No. Very few programs you get on. I mean, I've done 190 episodes at this point. I think we've maybe talked about play 2 or 3 times.
It's neglected for sure, because at the immersion, my men's event, there were some major breakthroughs after the play workshop. One client in particular, he had loved photography his whole life, but, came up with all these excuses as to why he couldn't do it. And, he'd do it sometime in the future. One day he'd get to it. Right. And then after the play workshop, he was like, oh, I can start doing this now, and that will dramatically improve the quality of my life. Yep. Right. And so we started taking photography classes, and he's just a completely different man now, because it's a stress reliever. It's a creative outlet. It's so powerful. So that's the P. The T is train your mind and your body. So train physically in the gym, create that physical freedom, which we talked about, and then train your mind, right? Learn new skills, read books, listen to educational podcasts, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, the importance of that. The A, the second A, is accept the uncontrollable, right? So we talked a little bit about how we cannot control the external environment, and a lot of times some of the best things to do is accept it, right? Like I'll give the example of anxiety. So sometimes when people experience anxiety, and I can speak from experience, when I've experienced anxiety, I was like, what the heck is this? I don't like this feeling. I want to escape from this as fast as possible, right? And that, of course, reinforces it because what we resist persists. So then I learned once to just accept what was happening in the moment. Then that's when the feelings would start to go away. And there's a quote from Joseph Campbell: "Any feeling felt all the way through is bliss." Right. So no matter what you're feeling, the more that you try to escape it, the more that it's going to suck and be uncomfortable. Same thing in the ice bath or the cold shower. It's supposed to be cold. If you're thinking about getting out and being warm, or if you're thinking about how much this sucks and how cold it is, that's going to make the experience even more hard, even more difficult. But if you can accept, hey, I'm supposed to be cold right now. Anxiety, stress, these are normal human feelings, right? So feel it. It's like, if it's raining outside, you can complain all you want, but it's not going to change the fact that it's raining. So it's raining. Cool. I'm anxious. Yep. Then take it from there. So accept the uncontrollable. The I is inspire others. Inspire is one of my personal core values as well. How I came to this is I would always try to tell people what to do or how to live, because I thought that I had the answers to their problems, right? And of course, nobody likes to be told what to do. And then one day I realized, like, hey, this is not working, right? So if me telling people what to do is the problem and they're not receiving it, what's the solution? Well, people don't like to be told what to do. They like to be shown what to do. They like to be inspired by somebody else and see, hey, that's possible. I can do that. So instead of, telling people about how to be healthier, I decided that I was going to live it to the best of my ability and document it through podcasts, social media, things like that, and then inspire others through my actions, right? So showing them, not telling them. Well, show and tell, right? So that's inspiration. And another thing is, a lot of people, when they join my program, they get very excited and they want to tell everybody. It's similar to CrossFit. When people join CrossFit, they want to tell everybody about how awesome CrossFit is. Nobody wants to hear it, right? Nobody wants to hear it. So instead, just live your best life, be as happy, healthy, productive as you can be. And then guess what? People are going to start to ask you questions. Because again, going back to our conversation, the majority of people today are not happy with their lives. They are stressed out. So if they seeing you living the life that they think is not possible, living the life that they wish they could live, they're going to ask you questions. Hey, what are you doing? I've noticed a shift in your energy the past few weeks. What's new? What are you doing? How can I get on that? Right? The N is nasal breathing. We talked a little bit about this with the cold, how we can downregulate our nervous system. A lot of people are mouth breathers. I learned this in the Marine Corps first. I don't think they knew the physiological benefits of nasal breathing, but you just look stupid if you're sitting there like, right? Like, close your damn mouth, right? Your mouth is for eating and for talking. The fastest way to downregulate your nervous system, to control your stress response, is through deep diaphragmatic nasal breathing. So a lot of us, our breathing is shallow, trapped in the chest, right? And even if you nasal breathe, you can have shallow chest breaths. So a good cue for this is low and slow. Try to breathe low into your belly. Really, it's just lower lungs, and slow, specifically the exhale. The longer you can prolong the exhale, the more down-regulatory and calming that breath is going to be. So a simple one that I teach is the physiological sigh, right? You're nodding, you're familiar with it. It's a double inhale through the nose, prolonged exhale. Yep. Another good one is box breathing, 4-count inhale, 4-count hold, 4-count exhale, 4-count hold. You do always have time to breathe. So whatever the stressful situation, you have time to breathe. It's a very simple hack. The S in the Captain's Code is sun exposure. Get outside, watch the morning sun. That is one of the first things that I tell anybody, regardless of what they're struggling with. Watching the sunrise has profound benefits. One, because it plays such a huge role in circadian rhythm, which is our body's internal clock. Tells us when to be awake and alert, helps you sleep better, increases serotonin and dopamine. So many benefits of getting outside, watching the sunrise. And then also getting sun exposure throughout the day so you can get better blood flow, because the UV light helps with nitric oxide production, and also vitamin D, which is crucial for all things health, testosterone included. The second C in the Captain's Code is connect with Mother Earth and with loved ones. So grounding primarily is what we mean when we say connect to the earth. So grounding is also stress relieving. It reduces inflammation. And in our modern day lifestyles, most of us have become so disconnected from nature and from our primal instincts, right? Like, when was the last time you climbed a tree or even put your bare feet on the ground? Like, we're wearing these foot prisons all the time that are insulated with rubber insoles from the earth. So we're disconnected from the natural healing frequencies of earth. So put your feet in the ground, very simple hack. And you can combine these too, like get outside, watch the sunrise with your feet in the ground. You can combine two of them. And then connect with loved ones. Especially over the past few years, we have been disconnected from loved ones, right? That's why loneliness is such a problem right now. We feel like we can't connect with each other, but it turns out we're actually very similar. Like, whatever problem you have currently, other guys have that problem. We talked about this on our episode, like pornography. I forget the guy's name. Who was it? Zach? Mm-hmm. Yeah, who first submitted it to you, and you're like, oh, other people struggle with this too, and then you were able to open up. So having a supportive group of men is huge. We could talk a lot about that, but we'll continue on. The O is observe your thoughts, feelings, and actions. We talked about that as well. So think of yourself as a third-party viewer. We talked about this on our episode as well. If you're, or I think this was with Mason, a guy that I interviewed. One of his hacks for getting guys to stop watching porn is imagine yourself from the third person, like watching yourself watch porn and jerk off. Like, that's just a completely new perspective, and then you're more likely to be like, oh, that I don't like to look at that.
I shot a video one time. Like, you want to guarantee you'll stop watching porn? Video yourself watching porn, and then go watch that, and I guarantee you'll never do it again.
That's good. That's good. I like that. So yeah, simply become an observer of your reality. Then the D is delegate. We don't have to do everything ourselves, especially as entrepreneurs. We can get so caught up in trying to do everything, and that can lead to overwhelm, massive amounts of stress. So delegate things. I use Instacart to get groceries. That's a very simple hack. So instead of spending the time to go to the grocery store and come back, I can have somebody do it for me. That allows me more time, right? So simple things like that. Also hire employees. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs make the excuse that they don't have the resources to hire an employee, but you realize that once you do, that frees up your time to do more of the things that make you more money.
Yeah, you're working the $10, $15 hour jobs when in reality your time should be worth 50 plus, per hour. So I love that.
Yeah. And then last but not least, the E is eat real food. Self-explanatory there. If it grew from the ground or was alive at some point, eat that, not this processed bullshit.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for walking us through all of those. I do want to circle back to the connect, the community component, because I do think that's a major problem with men today. But just kind of putting a bow on the Captain's Code. If you had to pick one that a guy can maybe kind of walk away with, I know you can kind of combine them. You could literally knock all these out probably within the first 30 minutes of your day if you're really structured and detailed with it. Which one of the 12 will have the biggest significant change if somebody can walk away with one of them? Which one do people struggle with? 3 questions here. So the biggest one that'll create change, the one that most people struggle with, and the one that Taylor has struggled with the most.
The answer to your first question is it depends, right? Like, we're all individuals. We're all different places in our lives. So that's why when I say when people get the Captain's Code and they don't know where to start, well, start with the one that you're struggling with most. Like, if you haven't played since you were a kid, start there. See how much fun it is.
Yeah.
Right. The answer that I will give instead of it depends, just to play along with the game, is watching the sunrise.
I was going to say, just from the outsider, like I would say getting control of your circadian clock would be the biggest one, because that's going to have to carry over into every other area of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, going back to what I said, like watching the sunrise, especially if you can combine it with putting your feet in the ground. And that's such a simple hack that takes minimum 2 minutes in the morning that can have a radical shift in the quality of your life.
Yep.
Because if you win the morning, you win the day. If you start off more energized and alert, not needing coffee, then coffee becomes a nice to have, not a need to have. And you're more motivated from the increase in dopamine. You feel better from the serotonin increase. That just, translate to a better day. So yeah, watching the sunrise. The second question, what is the article that most people struggle with? Man, nobody likes to take cold showers, but nobody's also, but nobody's not the right word, because of course some people are, but I think the community aspect, the connection with others. And this is what I struggled with for a long time myself. So it's actually the same answer, is connection with others. A lot of times I would just, especially in the Marine Corps, I would keep all of my feelings to myself, because the one time that I did open up about how I was feeling to a buddy in the Marine Corps, about how I was depressed and like not feeling good at all, he basically just said, suck it up. Like, we're all feeling that way. And I was like crying. And then I hear that and I'm like, I'm not going to fucking tell anybody anything anymore. Right. So I would say the connection aspect for sure. And it's so rewarding to see guys come into the crew, which is my men's community, and they're a little hesitant at first, rightfully so, because of similar experiences to what I just explained. And then they see that all the guys in there, they're not in competition with them. In fact, quite the opposite. They're very supportive, and we want to help each other succeed. And that's something new for a lot of guys that they haven't really experienced before.
Yeah, that's been for me, the brotherhood, the community. So for the first year plus 14 months or so of coaching, I did it all one-to-one, because I didn't really understand. I didn't have confidence in myself, truthfully. Like, as I was just getting this thing off the ground, I'm like, I just need to hold on. I need to be as close to you. Then about a year or so into it, I brought them into a community, and that just skyrocketed. The success, the transformation, the growth. Some of the most rewarding parts of coaching for me is these guys creating relationships and doing things outside of me facilitating it, like showing up on a weekly group call and these guys saying, yeah, we linked up this weekend. We all got together in Arizona, went out, shot guns, broke bread. And like, I had no part of this. I'm learning it 3-4 days later. I mean, the relationships that we've created in a porn, like, these guys come in isolated. They come in shame, guilt, like not wanting to talk about this. By the end of 4 months, they feel like they have brothers in life. They have running mates. I mean, formed business relationships inside of our group. These guys have gone on vacations together. Like, it's truly, truly remarkable. And I think most men are struggling, right? I think the most common answer when you ask a guy, how many close friends do you have? Close friend being defined as somebody you can call in time of need. The most common response to that question by men is 0. Why is there such a crisis going on right now with male friendships or community or brotherhood, whatever word you want to?
I'll speak from experience. Why it took me a while to talk about my feelings and to connect with other guys like this was because that I felt that part of being a man was being able to do it on your own, like being able to handle everything just on your own, which I now know is absolutely not the case. No man is an island, right? The whole lone wolf mentality, like even if you can do it on your own, why would you? If you can have a supportive group of guys that can help get you there faster, why not do that? So for me, it was I was scared of being vulnerable. I was scared of being vulnerable, of admitting that I'm not yet where I want to be and that I needed help. For me, that was difficult. And then once I did, I'm trying to remember my first like coaching experience. When I was in Saudi Arabia, I hired a coach with a program to help build out my program. I think that was my first like real coaching experience, and for that it was different because I wasn't coming from a place of vulnerability. It was like, I don't have any clue about how to start a business. And so I was able to bypass that vulnerability and just be curious and open to learning. And then once I saw the benefits of that, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm just going to always have a coach and always be part of a program and talk to people about what I'm struggling with, because a lot of times they'll have the answers and they can help me. So once I realized that, it was like an instant shift. And since then, and I've gotten better at this, is be vulnerable about everything.
Yeah. I love that, man. I've been heavy into coaching, masterminds, groups, all this stuff for going on 7-8 years. 2016, and one of my first early mentors, I remember him saying this. He's like, you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. And I think that's exactly what you're speaking to here. I mean, you look at anybody that's ever accomplished anything of significance. Look at the people that you idolize, whether it's in sports or business or in music or in whatever. They all have teams behind them or teams together that are leading this charge. So, Taylor, this has been amazing. Grateful for you hosting us here today. It's awesome to link up and do these in person. It just creates a much deeper connection. So hopefully the audience felt that. Tell them, men, where they can find you, where they connect with you socially, where you're hanging out these days, what's big and coming up in the captain's lifestyle, and we'll bring the conversation to a close with our last question.
At Captain_Taylor_Morgan on Instagram until I get banned. We'll see. The Captain's Lifestyle podcast, the Captain's Lifestyle on YouTube, and that's really it. We've got the link for the Captain's Code, free download. You'll be able to find that link in my bio. And then the immersion is the men's event, which is coming up. You said this episode will be out when?
In a week. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So the immersion is May 3rd through 7th. And it's 5 days of essentially forming a brotherhood, overcoming challenges, overcoming self-limiting beliefs is a big one, and then celebrating wins. So we do ice bath challenges, saunas, workouts, bringing guest speakers. The play workshop is one that I mentioned. Awesome. Breath work, you name it. We eat like captains as well, all highest quality food. So it's a good time.
Love it. And that's coming up, and there's spots still open?
Yeah, if you'd be interested in that, I would say download the Captain's Code first, read through that, see if you resonate with it, and then join the crew, which is only $1. That's my men's community where we communicate daily in our Telegram chat, weekly coaching calls, monthly masterminds.
Awesome.
So that's where to find more info about it.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, we got all that plugged down in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be down there in the description box. We'll have the podcast, we'll have Taylor's Instagram, all the websites, everything. So we like to end every episode with the same question here. Mr. Morgan, the title of the show is obviously called The Superhuman Life. When I talk about living a superhuman life, it's a belief system. It's how I try to show up and live my life every single day in the world. And it's coming from the place as a believer here. I do believe that we're put on this earth for a purpose. There's a reason calling on every single one of our lives. And I think most people accept that and they stop there. Yeah, I'm here for a purpose. We have to take it to the next layer, and we must be very intentional about our growth, about our development, and how we bring that purpose or calling to the world in service of others. So that's how I define living a superhuman life. But as we close out today's conversation, Captain Taylor Morgan, how would you define living?
Living a superhuman life sounds very similar to my purpose, which is to make thriving standards. So thriving in your life instead of surviving, which is, again, what the majority of people are going through today. So how I would describe living a superhuman life is living in alignment with your purpose. And if you haven't found your purpose, that's a priority, is finding a purpose, finding what excites you. So many of us go through our days and through our life without feeling any sense of excitement, right? It's just this autopilot over and over again of, stress, and you don't like going to your job or whatever it is. So if that's you, as Stephen Pressfield says in The War of Art, fear shows us what we need to do most. So if you're in a place where you feel like you're not living a superhuman life, think about what you're most scared to do and go do that thing.
Amen, bro. That's incredible. I will second that. It's oftentimes in the darkest spots of your life is where the true meaning is going to be revealed. So, Taylor, it's been an absolute honor. Guys, if you are still new here, thank you for joining us. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe here on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, We love those ratings. We've seen tremendous growth over the last few months, and it's all because of you guys. So if you got value out of this conversation, make sure to leave us that 5-star rating or written review. But more importantly, if there's a guy that's in your life right now, maybe he's struggling with some of these things that we talked about here today. Maybe he's struggling with finding his purpose. Maybe he needs to unlock his captain's code in his life so he can live that captain's lifestyle. Do us a favor and him the blessing by sharing today's conversation with him. But for Captain Taylor Morgan, Frank Rich, your host here, we love you guys, and we'll see you next week.